Hey, it's another Codex retrospective with me, Omegon, and with me is Aun'Shi.
What's up?
And we're still in 3rd edition. This is the 3rd edition Imperial Guard Codex. And accompanying it, we will do the 3rd edition Codex Catechins supplement for it, because this thing is less than 30 pages, and it's kind of important to the history of Imperial Guard, obviously. For a little background, Aun'Shi, despite the Tau name, after he built his Tau army, his main army was Imperial Guard, and it went on to become like his biggest army.
6 Bane Blades.
Yeah, it was a lot of Bane Blade class, like super heavy tanks. It was
Varied it up.
Yeah, you had what? You had the original was like you had one regular
two
Bane
Blades, a Hellhammer, 2 Storm Lords, and the Plasma Destroyer.
I think that's the Storm Lord.
Nah, the Storm Lord's the one with the Vulcan.
Oh yeah, Storm Lord is the best one. Are those Storm Blades?
Transport.
Storm Blades were the ones that had the Plasma Destroyer?
I don't know, but people will be able to find it.
Well, not Plasma Destroyer, it's the Plasma Blast Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Storm Blade was it was the Shadow Sword variant that had the Plasma Blast Gun on it.
Anyways.
Yeah. So, the 3rd edition Codex Imperial Guard. Jervis Johnson, Gav Thorpe. This was back when Gav Thorpe was cool. I was missing the cover because this is like the best scan I could find of it. It's the best scan everybody has of it. But the internal art is very much like very character for 3rd edition. The cover art was done by David Gallagher, which we can't see, but I'm sure it'll pop up later. The internal art, more David Gallagher, Alexander Boyd, Peter Gosling, Neil Hodgson, Karl Kopinski, of course, and John Wigley. And then this, like you can see even from the intro, we immediately get into the gritty mankind fighting in horrible places for the good of all and all that jazz. This came out. This one was 1999, because I think in like 2002 was when we got to the 3.5 Codex Imperial Guard. This is the famous one, but we probably won't do a retrospective on that one until we get to about 3.5, when it starts to be a changeover in the 4th edition. Unfortunate, but we have to get the fundamentals down, see where everybody came from.
Lots of good, lots of bad. Lots
of ugly. Like, real ugly. There was a lot of really ugly models, but the cool thing about the Imperial Guard was the aesthetic was like they're supposed to look like, ugly fighting men in an ugly fighting situation. It wasn't
in an ugly fighting universe.
It is fighting around the universe. So, introduction. Why play Imperial Guard? Because you like Saving Private Ryan and war movies where it's all about war feels with your war bros. And you
love covering the table in models, but you hate bugs.
You just want to shoot every gun ever. Like, Tau is supposed to be a gunline army. Space Marines can be a gunline army. The real gunline army has always been the Imperial Guard. So, more cool artwork. Just like all of the, even without like the sepia, it's always like muscles and gunfire and everything for the classic Imperial Guard aesthetic. They have like the
fucking stabbing what appears to be a gene stealer.
This Catechins just being like, "Get out of my jungle!" We're just other horrible aliens. Because this was in the era when they were.
Now I'm noticing there's 2 guys stabbing.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I mean, like this was also the era when these might not even be gene stealers. Well, they could be demons. They could be an alien. Because remember, this was the era when GW was like, just because it doesn't have an official army doesn't mean it's not important, or like something that could have been important for what these regiments fought and everything. Because there was all kinds of stuff that were never put in armies in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, they get into the famous regiments. Everyone's seen Acadian shock troops based on Canadian troops. They're the standard template on which every other Imperial Guard looks like ever. They're like, especially after Winter Assault came out for Dawn of War 1, everybody knows what Imperial Guard looked like. They look like Cadians almost all the time. Unfortunate, but like it's iconic style, but it's kind of unfortunate. And also like the Cadian design basically was ripped off from the Starship Troopers movie, not the book, the movie. So yeah, should we even get into the history of Cadia, or should we just assume everybody knows it?
Let's not get into it, because if we start going into the history of stuff outside the book, it's going to take us several days to finish.
Yeah, that's true. Valhalla and Ice Warriors. Like, basically the cool thing about Imperial Guard was that in comparison to every other faction in the game, they were very much grounded in history, at least during this era. So every regiment that, like, unless you wanted to make your own regiment, which was encouraged at this time,
not so much these days.
Yeah, these days it's like, you playing Catechins or you playing Cadians? Oh, you want to play, like, you want to play Talarn? Good luck. We got rid of that model line. Or whatever. But, Cadians were based on Canadian, like, what I was going to say is,
they're your generic go-to modern military.
Yeah, and at this time, all of the famous Imperial Guard regiments, the ones that were already canon before whatever you designed, that was encouraged at this time, so you didn't have to stick with them. They were based in reality in the sense that most Imperial Guard regiments were based on a famous army from an older time period in human history. So Cadians were Canadian, obviously. Canadian modern military, because the British that wrote this had a tremendous respect for what the Canadians did during World War II to help the Empire, when it was still an empire. Then you had Valhalla and Ice Warriors, which were, World War II era Russian Red Army. They have the Ushankas, they have used human wave tactics and heavy artillery and heavy tanks. They don't give a shit. Tough bastards from an ice planet. Everything is cold and terrible. Catechin jungle fighters were American GIs, like American and Australian GIs and commandos during Vietnam. Basically, they're from Planet Rambo. Morty and Iron Guard were like almost German. They're a lot of mechanized, a lot of armored regiments. Very, very rigidly designed, They basically went into battle with dress uniforms. Talarn Desert Raiders is like, Lawrence of Arabia style, like like Bedouin warriors and Arab warriors on horseback. They were mostly light infantry or like cavalry skirmishers. Adel Rut Fighters. It's in the name. It's, Attila the Hun. It's like, this was when, Rough Riders were more of a feature of Imperial Guard, and like the table 40K was still kind of evolving out of the roots of fantasy.
Warhammer fantasy.
Yeah. So you have them, and then there's going to be some others that we'll get into, probably like Vostroyans and whatnot. Still had
standard 4-sword.
Yeah, back when everybody had a 4-sword chart. We don't use that anymore because we're stupid. This is Talarn's fighting orcs here with a Titan in the background. The army list entries, and then the whole special rules. And this is where, like, immediately Imperial Guard branch off from everybody else, where everybody else would have a standard 4-sword chart like this, and the Imperial Guard did. A cool thing about the way the Imperial Guard worked was because they organized stuff into a, like, almost quasi-realistic army way. Your army was basically a company, and it was broken up into platoons and everything, and a platoon would be a single troops choice, instead of it being like, Space Marines, Eldar, whoever. One troop's choice was one squad. Imperial Guard, one troop choice was a single platoon, which could be like 5 squads.
It gave you a lot more flexibility. That's what really brought me into the Imperial Guard, was how much more flexible they were than everyone.
Yeah, and it's like they were flexible. Like they're supposed to be a rigid army in comparison to every other faction that could be like, a Space Marine chapter is a Space Marine chapter, but Eldar could be like, a random war host assembled by a warlock at the last minute, or it could be a standing army. Chaos were almost uniformly, like, they could be a legion spearhead, or they could be like a random war band of pirates and idiots, or whatever. Orcs were always a rabble. Imperial Guard is supposed to be the rigid, like, we are the professional military faction, and they were the most flexible just by virtue of actually having, like, a quasi-realistic army set up. I'm sorry if I bowled over you there. But So you can break it down. They had a command. Their headquarters was an actual headquarters element. They could have weapon squads and attachments to anything, and then infantry platoons would be like a single command squad. They have a command section that would be like the command squad for each for like the whole platoon itself, and then the rest of the rifleman squads for it. And they break down the rules here.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep. It's better laid out in the next codex than this one.
Yeah. But because that one was a refinement of everything that came before, and then they added even more options. But
they also cut a lot of options too.
Because
they cut out a lot of vehicles.
Yeah, they did, but that was I don't even know why they did it at the time. That's something I'll have to investigate, because I remember they cut out a lot of it. Like, every time they cut something in the modern day, it's because they don't want to make a model for it, and they don't want the rules to be floating around so that other companies can make a model for it because of lawsuits and whatnot. But as these rules indicate, a cool thing is that, like, they could have a leadership bubble to keep your guys from breaking, because this was when morale was actually kind of important to the game, especially to the Imperial Guard. Imperial Guard is like one of the only armies that you have to really worry about morale and leadership tests. And it's how the platoons operated, how heavy weapons teams were, where it was that was a kind of a clunky.
The model
rule.
was 2 people, but it counts as 2 people on a single base.
Yeah,
like, it's really simple, but just because the rules were at this time, it had to get more complicated than it really was.
Yeah, also, like, a thing that one of the big things about the clunkiness, that, like, even though Imperial Guard didn't need this to happen to make it like it wasn't a problem in the metagame for Imperial Guard specifically, around 5th edition, when everybody got upset with wound allocation and everything, was when Imperial Guard got their heavy weapons rules changed, so that it went from being 2 guys on a single base to the single base became one model.
One model.
Yeah, and
it
had
2 wounds.
It had 2 wounds,
but it had 2 weapons, so you take a wound and the lasgun guy could still shoot.
Yeah, and that was basically how it worked. Was basically how they had it was, like, if a weapon team lost a guy, then it could still fire its heavy weapon. But if you did the way when they changed it to a single model with just 2 wounds, they made it so if it took an instant death wound, which was, like, pretty easy because most special weapons and AT weapons could instant kill any guard model, then you got to kill both guys at once, so you didn't have to deal with, like, you just shot the loader, I'm going to keep firing my heavy bolter. And then, of course, the most important, the commissars, who are like a famous they're a famous staple of 40k now. Do you ever use them much?
Every time I took conscripts.
Yeah, but other than that, like, that's the obvious one, is conscript blocks.
Generally, no, because your regular squads, you're throwing too many points into one model to stop one squad that might run away.
Yeah.
Whereas when you throw one in a conscript blob and give him a power fist,
then it's just, now you're basically playing discount orcs, and it's scary. Because this was
just have the commissar ready to fucking deck somebody.
Yeah, and this was before they added the challenge rules, so you couldn't call the commissar out of the fight. This was before challenge rules and precision shots. So the commissar could just sit in the back of the conscript blob and just be like, keep going.
Or, step forward and fucking deck something.
Yep. More lore, like they have, like, all these little, like, letters and everything. They have requisition forms and everything later, which is fun, because half the fun of the Imperial Guard fluff is just the shenanigans that goes on with the Departamento Munitorium being terrible at everything. And then some artwork of, I believe these are Valhallans. It's like they're supposed to be lasguns, but they're obviously drawn in silhouette as Mosin Nagants as well, which I love. And then, of course, the armory, a section you don't see much anymore, not at least in this format.
Like, I liked that they had everything in one area, but I also liked them putting it in with each section.
Yeah.
So, like, I understand. I wish, for the amount you were paying for a codex, they had enough. They should have had enough money to add in those extra couple pages.
Yeah.
Instead of filling the book with ads.
This was like, in this era, the codexes were always like softback, and they were like, this codex was
$20, ultra laminated paper.
$20. Like most codexes were between like 40 and 60 pages about, but like $20 in like what 2000 money, 2002 money. This came out in 99, but like
it was like $1 worth of fucking paper.
Yeah. And it was just like they kept raising the price, so it was like $20 until like what 2011, and then it started being 25, and then it was like 30,
and then they just fucking started racking it up.
And then they made them hardback, and it was like 45 to. It was like a D&D hard. It was like a D&D source book price for a hardback codex that was like half of it was ads for their other stuff.
But as you can see here, once again, them being a super flexible army.
Yeah. They had a lot of... This was also like when a lot of stuff was left up to your imagination, too, which is a big thing that I liked about just this whole era, as I've said before. Like, trademark item is one of my favorite things. Just because, it's a little 5 points, as it gives you a little bonus, but it's never described as anything. It's just said, like, this is the trademark of the commander. And it's like references to...
It does say it's like a swagger stick or something that they're known by.
Yeah, but it's like, it can be anything. But I like that it's a reference to other like great commanders of World War II or whatever that were famous for the stuff. Like Creed has pearl-handled pistols like Patton did. And then like or they say it's a swagger stick like Montgomery. Or it'll be a special pipe or a cigar like MacArthur. I just always dug that. Then this is when they could take targeters, which targeters were, for whatever reason in this era.
It was because you had to guess range for indirect weapons. Yeah,
and it was important because in this era you couldn't pre-measure. They didn't change that until like 6th edition, where like you weren't allowed. 5th edition or 6th edition, they changed it. But prior to that, you weren't allowed to measure the range in the shooting phase before you declared an attack with any model. So you had to and this was when they had, there'll be weapons down here like the mortar, where it has G in front of the range, that means guess. So you had to guess somewhere inside that range to hit, to attack something. But the targeter let you pre-measure, which was awesome. And what was really weird was the targeter, like Space Marines and Chaos Marines didn't get targeters, but Inquisition and Imperial Guard did. And it was like 1 point. So
I don't think they had many guess weapons.
They didn't, but a targeter would have also been useful just because you're not allowed to pre-measure in general. So there'd be times where it'd be like, enemies at 25 inches, and and it's like at 25 inches, so you can't even hit them with panzers.
It's part of your regular shootings, the problem.
Yeah. Well, also the shenanigans with how rapid fire used to work, where you had to declare before you were attacking if you're single shot or double tapping. And if you declared double tapping and they were just out of range of the double tap range, then it wasn't. Then you just wasted the attack because you weren't allowed to pre-measure. But generally, another thing is that like a lot of the stuff is very pedestrian. Like they don't have demon weapons or special stuff like adamantium mantle or whatever. It's just like we have regular guns, special regular guns, grenades, maybe a standard, a cool looking thing for my commander, maybe a 5-up invuln save. We're regular dudes with like no funding. This is what we get. And they had, vehicle upgrades were really important for this army as well. And relatively cheap for the time.
I always loved the armored cab because it was a way for you to change your model.
Yeah, armored crew compartment. Camo netting was hilarious in this edition, especially for 1 point a model. But,
Camo netting has been hilarious in every edition it's been in.
It's not as ridiculous nowadays, though, because now it's just stealth.
Yeah, but when it used to be you're not allowed to shoot my models till after they shoot.
Yeah, it's like you can't shoot this model because until it fires, it looks like a random hill, and you would never shoot at a random hill. That was suspiciously not there yesterday. But then you have the whole weapons table, which during this edition they didn't save until the very back of the book, which is kind of not as good as it did later, but at least like you know what's going where, and it helps with like determining when they're telling you what guns do right here. And as you can see, very pedestrian again. Not like never.
Lots of variety though.
Yeah, lots of variety, but nothing ever that's like special snowflakey, which is part of the appeal of this army. And here, it's like the almighty Griffin, the tank that went missing between like suddenly, and then showed up like 2 editions later. So there's that. Probably because the Griffin mortar was fantastic for its points. Then they explain all the war gear. This is like bionics were always super cool in this edition because it was basically you could get back up after a fight. Carapace armor that's basically just modern body armor as the way that they describe it now in comparison to then, where it was an armor suit. Hell guns before they got retconned into being
hot shot las guns.
Yeah, where they're like, oh no, these are also hell guns. It's like, no, they're totally different things. Holy Relic, the comlink for vehicles. That was like you could do pre-game shenanigans with it, or not pre-game shenanigans. This was expending the leadership bubble.
Yep.
Mastercrafted weapons, which are always been a staple. Metapack was hilarious, because it was you got feel no pain because some dude would just sit there.
Not this edition. It made your models immune to instant death, which was hilarious.
Yeah. But later on, like the immediate next edition, the med pack got even funnier because it gave everybody feel no pain. So if you had a medic in a command squad, what was the sad thing about it was you could only ever put a medic in a command squad. You couldn't put a med pack in like a veteran squad or something.
Yeah, that was disappointing. I would have loved to put one in a conscript blob, but I know why it's not allowed.
Yeah. Medic! And it's just a medic throwing morphine at every single person in the conscript.
He's got a trank gun loaded with.
It's just the TF2 medic. Like, please God, make it end. I'm so tired of everyone dying constantly. Ogre and close combat weapons.
Lots and lots of options for an army that's not very flexible.
Yeah, Ogre and close combat weapons because you need Ogrins to be strength 6 in close combat. That's fair. I remember they took this out before the next book.
They got rid of it.
Yeah,
because it was just a stupid rule. But
they kept it in spirit for Winter Assault and onward for the in Dawn of War, where they let you take powered bayonets as an upgrade for Ogrins, and you're like, what? That would be crazy if they put like power field generators on the bayonets for Ogrins Ripper guns. This is always funny. The refractor field, where it's just, welcome to the Imperial Guard. Your commander gets a 5 Insvold save. That's the best we can do. Like, this is the best.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Regimental standard. We need this to win in combat. Please help us. The scanner, which was important for if people did stealth shenanigans, but like otherwise wasn't really used. Targeter. Pre-measure. This rule is included to avoid players using their targeters to gain advantages for other units that don't have them. Yeah, but it was specifically for guess range, but even though they said that, people still used it for that anyway. And the trademark item. The character carries into battle to show his disregard for the enemy. It could be a swagger stick or a nonchalantly smoked cigar or something more grandiose like a billowing scarlet cape or a chest full of shiny metals. I'm going to show up with all this candy. Look at me. Look at me, man. I'm a giant target. Doesn't that increase your morale? Still a cool I still thought it was a cool thing. And then
I forgot about the crew escape mechanism because they took it away.
Well, they took it away because like 3rd edition was still. This was when they were still kind of escaping from the rules of 2nd edition, where in 2nd edition the game was much more like a role-playing game, or like a narrative war game, as people would call it, than just an actual like skirmish war game. So that was why, like in 3rd edition, and earlier codexes, they would list what the crew of a vehicle was, because if a vehicle blew up in 2nd edition and in certain like variants of 3rd edition rules, the crew could get out and would form into its own squad, or it'd be important for victory point purposes and everything.
Yeah,
they're worth 0 victory points on their own. But if they're left alive, then the vehicle only counted as being damaged for victory points, not destroyed, because the crew is more valuable than the vehicle half the time.
Pretty much everything else on this table kind of does what you'd expect it to do.
Yeah. In this edition, the Hunter-Killer Missile was just kind of fun. It wasn't until later when it became like the most terrifying thing most people had ever seen. That was mostly just because you could have like chimeras were so cheap and Hunter-Killer Missiles were so cheap that like one infantry platoon could fire like 6 Hunter-Killer Missiles at a problem and erase it.
I feel like they just kept lowering the cost of chimeras because it's one of their highest profit models.
Probably because it's like the chimera, and aside from the devilfish and the wave serpent, because both of those were broken, the chimera was probably the best transport in the game. Like even better than the Razorback, as cheesy as the Razorback was.
Well, they had that one battle they did locally where it was like a battle over a bridge, and the guy who played IG just had his chimeras drive across the river.
Yeah,
because everyone forgot they're fucking amphibious.
Yeah, it's like they have amphibious. They could carry 12 guys instead of just 10. So if you attach a dude to the squad, it works. They could carry a decent sized contingent of Ogrins, so it'd be like,
there was that really weird time where the models inside could shoot outside, so your heavy weapons team would cram an autocannon onto the pintle.
Yeah, although in this edition it was like they could fire 3 las guns out of each side because they
could use the whole base las guns,
and then like they could make the vehicle open top during for a turn by opening the top hatches and firing out. The problem was they still counted as moving, so you couldn't fire a mortar out of the top of it, and like with any accuracy. Yet. And then snap shooting became a thing, and it was terrible. The Minesweeper back when they actually gave a shit about mines. Camo netting, just camouflage rolls, ensnares using a hidden setup rules. Vehicles carrying camo netting can be set up hidden anywhere in the deployment zone, not just behind appropriate terrain features. So it's
just fill out a little checkbox.
Yep.
You draw a doodle of the field and then put down where your tanks are hid.
And then the next edition was when it's like they're considered a terrain feature until they reveal themselves.
No, it was that was the edition after that. The next one was they got a cover save.
Yeah. Well, I think that was 5th edition and onwards when they started doing it, but I'm like the 3.5 decks. This one is the one where it's like, yeah, it looks like a hill, sir. So if you played Armored Company, you could put camo netting on your entire army for pennies on the dollar and be like, oh, who gets first turn? I don't care.
I do, whether you win or not.
Yeah. Smoke launchers, the classic. Track guards, which were fun. Extra armor, also the classic. And then rough terrain modification, which was fun. Searchlights when people actually use them, and now they
rolled rough totally terrain different. In the Minesweeper into one in the next edition.
Yeah, because then they made dozer blades into a different thing.
Yep.
I'm still mad they never got the crab flail, like the Sherman crab that had like the Minesweeper flail that you could just use to destroy cover and kill people with. Like you would have thought they would have had something like that. More fluff.
Check out this regiment that's never going to get any fucking love.
Nobody even remembers the Mortance 7 headhunters.
No, I think they're an only war.
They're probably not an only war. You're probably thinking of the Brontean long knives.
No, I'm not thinking of the long knives.
I don't think the Mortant 7 are in Only War.
We'll check later.
We'll check later.
This art keeps popping up, and I'll always love it.
This art is fantastic because, like, this is Alexander Boyd piece, and it's very, very gritty. I love it so much because you can take any piece of this artwork out of context and you understand what's going on. But then if you, like, make it small, and as you wide out, it just gets more ridiculous, where it's like, oh, look, these guys are fighting Tyranids. And then it's like, oh, those guys are fighting a lot of Tyranids. Oh, look, there's this huge army fighting Tyranids in a gun line. There's tanks, and then you just reveal, like, there's a hive in the distance on fire. There's a Titan. There's a starship, probably. There's a Bio-Titan over here. There's another one over here. It's just ridiculous, the scale. It's just the guardsman not the guardsman, the commissar right here just being angry. He's not even shooting anybody. He's just like, guys, come on.
I think he's actually recovering the flamer from that guy who got shot in the neck.
Yeah, that makes sense. This guy here. You have the sergeant being like, come on, guys. We could totally do it, as like one of his dudes gets his face ripped off. I love it. It is it's a very classic 40k piece. And now we get into the whole army list, and I really like this old format where I've talked about this before, where they had, artwork instead of just model images on the side of it, and then they had like a little bit of fluff box for it, and then they tell you everything.
Your one command squad can be up to 6 units.
Yep. The HQ.
Oh, I'm sorry, command platoon.
Command platoon. The headquarters section. And it's like you can have a captain if it's a company, or a colonel if it's like, this is a command section for an entire battalion. Is a colonel classically the leader of a battalion, or are they classically the leader of a larger or smaller unit?
It could go as high as a division.
Yeah. Well, it's like, the thing is this is also 40k, so it's like every guard regiment, like regiment is just a catch-all term. Every guard regiment is essentially like a totally different organized army based on the planet they came from. And, yeah. But generally, like, most of this uses British terms as opposed to American terms, so I don't even know exactly like what a colonel in the British Army usually leads in terms of size.
Not important. What is important? You can turn the actual command squad into a heavy weapons squad.
Yep. Oh, that was the best thing. Was like, except for the captain,
rigid and inflexible.
Yeah, except for the captain or the colonel, everybody in his command squad could take a special or heavy weapon. Just be like, yeah, like I surround myself with crazy men with plasma guns at all times, just in case. Also, a cool thing to note here, this thing. The grenade launchers were 15 points because this was in this edition was when grenade launchers like weren't baby town frolics.
No, grenade launchers were some serious shit.
Yeah,
because they were small blasts.
Yeah, and then like let's see, grenade launcher strength, it was assault blast, or you could just do assault with it, and it was like this damage profile, and they reduced it later on. They still it was not as bad during this edition because strength and toughness values weren't all over the place, but mortars have never been as effective in 40k as they honestly should be. Like basic infantry operating
effective
mortars.
Now.
Yeah, but like nobody takes them because it's like, why would I take an ordinary mortar?
Oh no,
I would take a
people
weapon
take them all the time now.
They do?
Because because whenever a mortar hits, it does like 1d6 hits.
Oh yeah, it's because it's 8th edition rules are weird and they don't use templates anymore.
Yeah, so your mortars are just shred any light infantry.
Yeah. I remember 6th and 7th, like by 5th edition, you never took mortars on anything. Because like even though you could shoot over
I still
cover,
took mortars.
Most people would just like I ran into would just like if they were taking heavy weapon squads, they were taking like something specialized, and they left the role of mortars to wyverns by 6th edition because wyverns were ridiculous. The storm shard mortars.
Yeah.
It's like the most horrifying thing a Tyranid player's ever seen was a Wyvern tank.
What's important here is look at all these options for an army that's supposed to be rigid and inflexible.
Yep. They could take a Sentinel. The platoon may include one squadron of Sentinels. They're not a fast tech unit. It's just a Sentinel squad attached to the platoon that's just like, yep, we're here to scout for you.
You can use fast attack without ever taking fast attack.
Yep. Rules as written, the medic could also carry a special weapon in this time. It wasn't like, the medic just can't do anything.
The medic could be your last cannon gunner.
Yep. Autocannon, the classic. And then everybody got frag grenades for 5 points, which was important in this edition because, cover and everything. Can have a comm
stack on 2 more heavy weapon squads in one command choice.
Yeah, you could take 5 heavy weapon squads and the HQ squad. And then anti-tank weapon squads, which were the, these ones were they were always missile launchers or las cannons.
Yeah, but you never really take them because their guns are just more for no reason.
They're just more expensive for no reason. So, maybe, they were 35 points. They were 35 points base, and you got 3 weapon teams out of them. I don't think the math adds up. Fire support heavy weapon squads, which were just good. And then mortar teams, which are just, look, it's mortar teams. They had all the descriptions on them and everything. And then commissars, which they don't take HQ choices. You could just spread them out everywhere and attach them as you needed. They had to join a separate unit, but you could put them in basically anything. And then they could be given additional equipment that was appropriate to whatever unit they were leading.
Yeah. Where they were kind of goofy was they weren't. Once you attached them to a unit, they stuck with that unit for the entire game.
Yeah, as if they were part of that unit.
If the squad gets wiped out and it's just the commissar, I think he even has to take morale checks.
Yeah, but I mean, this was before commissars were completely insane and were just more these are elite dudes. They had 3 attacks apiece at weapon skill 4, and initiative 4, which is pretty fucking good for Imperial Guard. But I mean, and this was before they was all they're the best of the best. They all have bolt pistols and everything. It's no, I liked it when commissars were kind of more they're just a specialized soldier, officer type. They weren't ludicrous. And then hardened veterans, which everybody knows about these guys because Imperial Guard was the army that started the trend of, why don't we have an elite section that's just 5 guys with good ballistic skill and all the special weapons they can carry.
Absolute shenanigans.
Yep.
Look at their weapons cost, though. It's back down to cheaper than the command squad, or almost as cheap as the command squad.
Yeah. And they
not as expensive as the heavy weapons team, though. It's so dumb.
It's funny because it's the best thing was you could take. It's you could take the 4 and 9, so you could take up to 10 guys, and it's up to 3 of them get special weapons, and then 2 of them could be a heavy. Yeah, but in this edition,
4 plasma guns and the one schmuck stuck with a las gun.
Yep, but what was funny about this is that so if you take a minimum squad of 5, you'd think 3 of them take special weapons and 1 takes a heavy weapon crew. But you could take 10 of them, and they could give them all sniper rifles at 5 points apiece. Oh no, it's maximum 1 per squad. Never mind. I would have this was before they made sniper rifles just a regular special weapon they could add.
Yeah, if you wanted a sniper squad, you took Rattlings,
which have always been good and underrated. Rattlings have always been underrated, unfortunately.
Frickin' Darkhammer and his hatred of Rattlings, saying they suck, and then getting Reed whenever my 30 Rattlings would just hose down his Carnifexes.
I mean, Darkhammer quoted a lot of meta about stuff that like basically was just stuff that floated around on Warseer. Let's be honest. But the Lexian 9 Sawtooths, another regiment lost to time that nobody remembers. Stormtroopers. This was before everybody just started calling him Kazarkin.
Well, next edition, they just got rid of the models for stormtroopers.
Well, they still had them. It's just the only time you saw them was in Inquisition armies that took inquisitorial stormtroopers, and then everybody else just bought Kazarkin because the Kazarkin models were so much better
and more abundant. And
I was explaining this to somebody the other day, is that like the whole thing was that the Kazarkin models becoming more popular than the Stormtrooper models is probably part of why GW was like, they're all hotshot lasguns now, because they didn't like that. They didn't like that. This model line basically sold nothing, and then they remade them for Militarum Tempestus. Also, probably because hotshot lasguns would have been easier to copyright than Hellgun.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Hellguns have always been cool. Well, what probably helped this army sell models more than anything was Dawn of War. Because Winter Assault, like the Imperial Guard, had so much character. Just the Hellguns, like, butta 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 sound. And, like, the sound effects, the voice acting, like, everything was so perfect. At least for, like, Cadian-style dudes. If anything, though, for this edition, these guys were kind of overcosted at 12 points a model.
No, they were very overcost.
Yeah, it's like they could deep strike and they could infiltrate, but it's like 12 points a model for Ballistic Skill 4 and AP 5 lasgun. It's like, really? Like, they were much better by 5th edition when it was hotshot lasguns, just because you could at least, like, argue that they could marine hunt. And they had more special weapon options than just 2 guys.
Yeah, no.
And they couldn't take heavy weapons.
They were a counter for nothing.
Yeah. And then Ogrins, which have always been pretty decent. Pretty decent for their points. Although in this edition they were T4 for some reason.
They were supposed to be like a counter slam.
Yeah.
Plus, in this edition, they had 3 wounds.
Yeah. Well, they had 3 wounds later, but T5. But the thing was that these were your only, your only dedicated close combat infantry.
No, you could give stormtroopers hell pistols and close combat weapons for free. I repeat again, counter for nothing.
Yeah. But what's funny about this, Ogrins are Ballistic Skill 3 in this edition. So it's like, what? What? Yeah.
You just always replace the Ripper gun with the Ogren close combat weapon.
Yeah. Although, like, later on, the Ripper guns became terrifying. What was cool was you could attach a Commissar to them and throw them in a Chimera, because it had 12 spots, so you had enough for 5 Ogrins and a Commissar, and then you could actually use them as like a guided missile, like a close combat missile, because they were weapon skill 4, so they would beat some stuff up.
Yeah, the problem was having to bail out and then assault the turn after.
Yeah, because assault vehicles, Rattlings, fantastic for 11 points a model.
I'm always upset that I'm upset that they were 0-1 in this edition, and then as soon as the next book came out and you could take 3 for an Elite's Choice, it was never a problem again.
Yeah, but and remember, they keep getting better every edition, because this edition was like, they can infiltrate, and the next edition is like, they can infiltrate and they have small targets so they can hide, and then like the next edition after that, it's like they infiltrate, they have small target.
While reducing their cost.
And they have stealth, yeah. And they reduced their cost, and they kept making sniper rifles better. Like, when it got to the point where you had precision weapons and everything, it was ridiculous.
Hits on 2, wounds on 4, no armor saves on 6.
Yeah. And then there's, you got precision. It was like, if you roll a 6 to hit, you get to choose who's dead. Oh, look, your heavy weapon's gone. Your sergeant's dead. Your special weapon guy blew up. And now, the bread and butter of every Imperial Guard army, the standard infantry platoon. 1 command section, 2 to 5 infantry squads. Led by a lieutenant, You get veteran sergeants, similar to just a miniature version of the command HQ.
Look at that 8-point grenade launcher.
Yep. For some reason, I think it was just because they're supposed to be like, the guardsmen carrying them is so squishy that they were like, let's offset the cost of these weapons a little bit. Because like every Imperial and Chaos Codex other than this one had like the same costs for about the same costs for special weapons, like across the board. It was always like Flamer 7 points, Melta Guns 10 points, Plasma Guns 15. Like almost every book, or Plasma Gun and Melta is 15, Flamer's 10. And then here they're like Flamer 3 points, Melta Guns 8, Grenade Launchers 8, Las Cannon for only 20 points.
You almost never took the heavy weapons integrated in the squad, though.
Yeah.
Just because they were so much more useful
to just run around. Yeah, just running around with, like, because you could just take Melta Guns, Flamers, and Grenade Launchers and just be like, look, it's assault weapons. We can just move and shoot.
You just take 2 grenade launchers.
Yeah.
Every time.
And a Chimera for that hilarious multi-laser heavy bolter combo. And then a regular guardsman squad.
Only 1 grenade launcher.
Yep. 1 grenade launcher, 1 special weapon, 1 heavy weapon team. But it was 60 points for 10 dudes. And then they could shoot.
This is when they were still trying to be balanced and you could only take 1 Chimera squad.
Yeah, the armored fist. It's like they had the armored fist, but like the guardsmen... they're the same price here. For a second, I thought the guardsmen would be cheaper, and then I just realized what they did. The Chimera, 70 points. Front armor 12.
Yeah, this is when it was, more balanced.
More balanced. Still really good, though. 70 points for front armor 12, and like you get a multi-laser or heavy flamer or heavy bolter, and then a heavy bolter or heavy flamer.
Yeah, but you do have to pay for all those. So at the lowest level, it's actually 85 points, whereas now it's like 65, 55.
And then the Codex, the 5th edition book, where it was like 35 points, comes all this standard. You could put a heavy stubber what was it, like 35 points
you put
base
a heavy stubber
and a Hunter killer missile on it for another 15 points, and it was like, look, it's
put
50...
heavy stubber, multi-laser, 3 Hunter killer missiles.
It's
a heavy bolt.
It's 50 points. It's 50
real estate.
It's free real estate. That was basically what it was at that point. Drive it across the board and just take territory. The Hellhound, they had the special Inferno cannon at this time because they had to like rule that it's like, oh yeah, you can do it past the template. Or was this before they actually had it before the template? Yeah, this was just when the Inferno cannon was scary. And then immediately next after this in the 3.5 decks, they made it so you got to move the template up to 12 inches away and then drop it.
Yep.
But still, it's so scary that if you even suffer one guy, you immediately have to fall back as if you failed a morale test, because that's a lot of fire. Also 70 points. And it came with the Inferno. For some reason, the Hellhound was cheaper than the Chimera technically, because the Chimera you had to buy its turret weapon.
To be fair, it had a primary weapon that had a range of 8 inches.
Yeah.
And if you moved more than 6 inches, you couldn't shoot it forward.
Yeah, but it did get move and shoot. And then they had its fuel tanks that made it so it's like, glancing hits were penetrating because explosive.
Yeah.
Which they got rid of later, which is kind of sad because like you would like what they should have done was keep the fuel tanks rule, but made Hellhounds like even cheaper when they made them fast. Like they had the fast type as well as tank, because then it would have been like you better get rid of these Hellhounds. Like they would have been a fantastic pressure unit like that, where it's like you can kill them with one shot.
They
but
were.
You don't get rid of them, they're going to be a problem. The Sentinels, the mini ATSTs.
The armored crew was not worth it on them in this edition. In later editions, definitely worth it.
Later edition Sentinels got to be crazy when they had like they could take like all kinds of weapons on them and everything. And then I think in this one, the Codicium supplement is where they got the defoliator attachment, where they had a chainsword.
Yeah, so they had a close combat weapon.
But here it was like they get a multi-laser or a heavy flamer on top of their basic cost. But they did get the scouts move. But like, it's nothing in comparison to later on where you had like Armageddon Sentinels with the armored crew compartment and the additional armor. And
front armor 12.
Had a rocket pod or a plasma cannon on it. You're just like, why? Why have you done this to me?
We need more flexibility.
Our army is too rigid. Make it more rigid. We're making it more rigid, we promise. Adds like 50 more options. Rough Riders. This is when they were pretty good for their points. 9 points a model to have like cavalry.
They still weren't that great because they're still guardsmen.
Yeah.
And the hunting lance only gave them +2 strength, but it did ignore armor saves.
Yeah, but at this time that was kind of a big deal, is what I'm saying. Because like strength 5 ignore armor saves on the charge for a cavalry unit for they're 9 points of models. Like you would have gotten, they would have made their points back by charging into like a random Space Marine unit.
Yeah, but they usually got hosed.
Yeah, but like I wish they're
a pressure unit.
Yeah, I wish they made more options for Rough Riders or just cavalry options in general in modern stuff. But I mean, I can say that about basically anything. But as we went on, like the Rough Riders kind of stayed the same, so they never got really that good. But during this edition, I could see them as being really useful because, you know, the Imperial Guard army is not very fast in general. Like, unless you just have, especially in this edition when you couldn't put everybody in transports. Valkyries. Yeah, and then later on, they had Valkyries, and like Rough Riders were totally null. Because Valkyries were so undercosted when they came out. And then, here's the star of the show. The King. Look at him. Look at that front armor 14 for no reason.
No, it has a good reason. The reason's fuck you.
Look at it. It's terrifying. The terror of Eldar players everywhere. A tank with 14 front armor. Oh wait, they had lances.
Yeah.
The terror of Orc players everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, they're pretty terrifying to everything. 140 points, front armor 14, battle cannon. What more could you want? 3 of them in one choice.
3 of them one choice, yeah, and some sponsons. The Lehman Rush
before they got rid of it and brought it back.
I love it. I love it in this edition when it actually had the coaxial. Like, because that's the thing that's missing. We've talked about this before in other videos. It's the thing that's missing in like every 40k tank is nobody has a coax except the Vanquisher. The first time it was introduced in like 2nd edition, and then in this 3rd edition.
Baneblades have a coax autocannon.
Baneblades are so big, their coax is an autocannon.
No, I'm with you. I would have loved for every Lehman Russ to have a coax stubber.
Like a heavy stubber? Maybe an option to change it out into something else?
Yeah.
I would have just loved it if there was a lot more reasonable things. The
Executioner, it has a autocannon with a coax autocannon.
Yeah. Or was the Executioner the autocannon, or are you thinking the Exterminator?
I don't know, man. There's so many fucking variants.
The Exterminator was the autocannons. The Executioner was the mini plasma blast gun. That would have been hilarious if the Executioner had its main cannon is the plasma incinerator or whatever it's called. I'm probably getting that wrong. It's like the half step between the blast gun but bigger than a cannon, and it's like its plasma cannon, and then its coax is a plasma gun. So you're just like, more plasma for your plasma. Follow my burst, flings plasma. You know, that would have been funny.
Fire on my tracers!
It's just the Captain America clip.
There's the Exterminator.
The Exterminator. Yeah, it's right here. We didn't even need to go look it up. Twin-linked autocannon. I remember this is the famous one from this edition, because this was when, around the time period that they came out with the Space Wolves Special Snowflake owned codex, and the Space Wolves got to take like one Lehman Russ variant, and they would always take the Exterminator. Because it was
No,
like,
that was the only one they could take was the Exterminator.
was it? All right. Well, it
Yeah.
made sense because for whatever reason, Lehman Russ was the guy they named the tank after. Still, like, I'm still pretty sure it's because it was a penis joke. But they got to take the Exterminator, and the Lehman Russ Exterminator with a Space Marine crew was like ridiculous. It was better in every way than a Predator Destructor.
Yeah.
Your dedicated heavy infantry murderer. Demolisher cannon. Open fire. This one had side armor 13.
And it could take plasma cannons.
And it could take... I remember this. It had side armor 13, rear armor 11. It had more armor than the other ones because it's a siege tank, and it had to be close because the Demolisher cannon had like such short range. And they could take
or you just take it, put a camo net on it, and park it right next to an important objective.
What was funny is if you think about it, this tank alone is the only reason why plasma cannons and multi-meltas are even in this book. Like, there's nothing else in the book that could take those weapons.
Nope. They're the only two.
And then the other star of the show, like the infantry platoon. It's like what the big three of Imperial Guard: the infantry platoon, the Lehman Russ, and the Basilisk. Basilisk was, it still is to this day, like very. I mean, in this day, most people take other stuff like manticores and whatnot, but like the Basilisk and was in its heyday was some shit.
Yeah, and then you have the questionable Griffin option, the Griffin.
I don't think it's questionable. I think the Griffin's always been really good for its points. Because like they kept making it cheaper every time it came out.
But as I recall, it's just got a shorter range.
That's true. Yeah, it's got what is it, like G48?
Yeah. Shorter range, less damaging unless you buy the seed shells.
And then at this time it didn't get indirect fire. That wasn't until like they codified
what it had indirect fire. So did the the Griffin was only indirect, whereas the Basilisks could direct fire.
Oh yeah, because it was a guess weapon. I'm forgetting all these rules because they were like only around for 2 editions. And then we get
Solar Macarius.
Alexander the Great in space. The special characters. And
read my book.
Read my book. It'll tell you how to conquer the galaxy. How did he die again in the lore? Like, what happened to him?
He didn't. He just kept invading space and kept invading.
Like
he left the galaxy conquering more planets for the Imperium without like properly leaving behind lines.
Yep.
I'm sure this fluff has changed, but that's the last version I
think the
remember.
Fluff changed to be
he just conquered his way out of the known universe.
Yeah, and I think they like an implication was he ran into the Tyranids or something. But
maybe
there was lore for I'm probably misremembering, but I think that like there's new lore about how like after he left or after he died, if he did die, there was like a secession crisis, just like Alexander the Great, that like destroyed all of the gains his crusade had made.
Pretty much.
This was when he was the big cheese for the army before Uskari Creed was the big cheese. And then I don't know why they got rid of Macarius. I like that his weapon skill is random.
So is his number of attacks. You roll at the start of the game and then it stays the same.
Yep.
His whole shtick was leadership 10, everyone within 12 inches.
Master strategist. Yep. His present you can choose you could choose to just go first.
Never ever take a commissar with Macarius.
Yep.
Fate itself will decree him getting executed.
He had a 3-up invuln save in 3rd edition, though. I forgot about that. That's crazy. That is amazing.
Alright, let's keep this shit show rolling.
Sorry. Here's a bunch of the lore about him. Faith without deeds is worthless. We have some more excellent artwork. That's Morty and Iron Guard for you. This guy with just this guy looks like he's got like either a boonie hat on or a fedora.
No, that's the kettle helmet regiment that one guy at GW.
Yeah,
where they're like a regular infantry unit, except they wear kettle helms.
They look like medieval men-at-arms.
Yep.
Here's Yarrick, the other big cheese of the Imperial Guard, who's been famously the big cheese.
He's been in every single book, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he is a big deal. I mean, he's the reason why the First War for Armageddon didn't go to shit. Or not First War, Second War for Armageddon. He wasn't alive during the First War for Armageddon. The Battle Claw.
And third.
Didn't he? Isn't the modern lore that he survived to the third, and in the third he's just like, oh God, please, why? He's
no,
like an
in
old
the third,
man.
he's literally like watching orcs flee before.
Yep.
As he just headbutts and claws his way through the orcs.
This was before they made his Bale Eye ridiculous.
Auto hitting strength 4 in this edition is ridiculous.
Yeah, but it got later on. It got to be like it's a strength 8 AP2 hit that he targets at the start of It was like something stupid like that where you could just snipe a guy at the start of the combat with it. Yeah, and the most ridiculous thing he's always had is his special force field that just reduces the strength of attacks.
And Iron Will.
Yeah, though Iron Will's like, it made sense. The force field was weird because you never saw any rule like that on anybody else except Yarrick. So you're like, why isn't there like some chapter master with his force field like this? Why isn't there a force field like
because
this on like a
they're not
tank?
as cool as Yarrick.
The force field is actually projected by Yarrick himself. It represents the fear orcs have.
It's his plot armor.
I see fear. I see fear in Kazgul's eyes when I unzip my force field. And then otherwise his stat line is like pretty average. It's like, oh look, he's like Space Marine light.
Well, he's got a mastercrafted Stormbolter, a mastercrafted las pistol for some reason, Carpus armor.
Yeah, his Power Fist isn't mastercrafted, but he has a las pistol that's mastercrafted.
Well, he's got an orc power claw, so it can't really be mastercraft.
Yeah. Well, you could have argued that like when it was implanted on him, it like they did something to make it cooler. Like here's his, like just orcs being terrified of him. And then the special boy.
Before he got removed and brought back.
Yep. The special boy. He's very loyal. Very loyal. He's just you just put him there. It's like, you're a highest ranking officer. Now can't die. Because this dude will not die. Well, he was T4, so you could probably kill him with a melt-a-gun.
Yeah. But he's just an extra layer of work for your opponent to do.
Yep. More lore about him, and then
Schaefer.
Colonel Schaefer's Last Chancers.
His own unique squad of special soldiers.
Yeah, this was when Gav Thorpe wrote this, this is when like the Last Chancers books were actually popular, and people hadn't totally forgotten about them. Schaefer himself has a really decent stat line. He's T4 just to represent how balls hard he is.
Combat master.
How balls hard he is to kill. Just master of close combat. Even Gene Stealer's got a -1 to hit him. He's just like, I'm just too good. And then it's like, as long as the Colonel's alive, everybody's fearless.
Yep. Like, he has his own squad of super elite dudes.
Yep. He always had... is this before? Where is he? Oh, no, this was the original one before he finished writing the books.
Before they had books.
So Cage was not in here yet when they were like, you have to have him. And this is just a Dirty Dozen reference.
Yep.
Crime. I like that they list all their crime. Colonel Schaefer's crime. He never committed a crime. None. And it's the classic, the Schaefer scowl. And then some of the fluff on him. And then this is probably like one of my favorite pieces in the whole book. If not,
Behold,
like
regiments.
Just like, look at all the weird regiments that we had that nobody cares about anymore. Like, you show this to people that are like all the people that are like female space marines, and then you're like, what about my female guardsmen? What about my sisters of battle? You're like, no, we need female space marines first. We can't get the janissaries. Like the crazy janissary helmet, the Jaguar warrior looking dudes. These guys in like tiger suits, the entire Commissar regiment, the entire Ogren regiment, Morty and Iron Guard, guys with power armor for some reason.
I love how it's like, here's a descriptor of every single regiment, and at the very end, there's just the Meridian added.
Yep. Morty and Iron Guard.
More disciplined than the entire Commissar regiment.
Yep. Because they're crazy. Death Corps of Krieg before they got wanked over. Crazy Crusaders, the Native American Regiment, Snow Dude Regiment.
The next book is where Krieg got good, and then after that, they started getting wanked over.
Yeah, well, like, because Krieg, like, it was one of those armies that got taken over by Forge World, so they were like, they all have special. The Bushmen of Serica, they're just Australians. They even have the hat.
Crikey.
And then more regiments, and then the mounted regiments with all their special mounts. The Gladiator Regiment, the Spaceman Regiment, the Naked Man Regiment, the not Skitarii Regiment. They have smokestacks coming out of them.
They're a bit more slapdash than the regular Skitarii.
Yeah. No, we're not Skitarii, we're Imperial Guard. Skitarii, we don't want to give them an army again because we're terrified of what happened during 2nd edition and 1st edition. Logic Gates. Desert Fox tank crew. Like the tank crew for armored regiments.
Yep.
Cadian guys just look like American tankers. Commissar tankers. It's just Desert Fox tank crew is just like... So I walked into this bar and like he's just sitting there. I just like that pose. Just how casual he is. Everybody else is like, we gotta check out this. We're on the turret. I have my gun. He's just like, yeah, whatever. Telling a joke to somebody. And then like these cool, they don't do these anymore. These cool like
the little art schematics.
Yeah, little schematics on graph paper that like like Jess Goodwin did. Like just Jess Goodwin and or whoever was on the modeling team at the time, like just drew for this
with almost proper scaling.
Yep, because the models were never in scale. The tanks were always too small, especially when they were the pewter tanks. Like this is when they started rolling out the plastic tanks.
The mixed, God forbid.
Yep. Terrifying. The Space Marines still have mixed ones. Like not every.
Thanks, I hate it.
Yep. Fighting orcs. This orc getting blastoed.
He's getting diddlied.
This orc is screwed too. Look at him. He's about to hit him with a chopper, and he's a bayonet's about to go into his armpit. Unprotected armpit shots. These are Valhallans.
Or into his neck.
Oh no, this is why they're Valhallans. They hate the orcs. They're like, no.
I love the dude with the book in front of the Commissar.
This is just a crazy Russian priest. That's the chaplain. That's like a group priest. You can tell because he's got the skull in his Ushanka. He's just like, the word says we have to kill all of you. It's like, no shit. Formation type rules, formation size, departmental munitorium stuff. I really loved it when they used to do stuff like
all this fluff.
And now they don't have it. Crusade. It's like an army theater, brigade, war zone type. We have ion storms. We have vacuum. There's ice waste. It's a hive. High pressure, low pressure, high tectonic, tar pits. Demi company, corps, company, cohort, brigade, battery, battalion, army. I dig it. troop team. Wait, so a troop is so it's a single troop, and then they have like a fire team, and then it's a squadron. Or is this like aeronautical things where
this is like some asshole sitting at a conjugator picking assignments and tasks.
A cogitator, yeah.
This is someone putting in like a request.
Yep.
I need a crusade, about a brigade-sized
crusade type for industrial war zone. What's going on? Oh, worker riot. Need you to send in military. They're demanding fair wages. Oh yeah, we could do that. Yeah, because this was when 40K was actually grimdark and not the Imperium is a nice place. Everybody else is evil.
I don't think it's that way now either.
I don't, but like everybody, modern fans act like it is, where they unironically say things like the Imperium is the good guys. Collecting and modeling an Imperial Guard army. Yep, this section. We talked about it before. It's still great. In all these old books where they're like, look, this is what your army will look like eventually, kid. It'll be really cool, and you'll have all this stuff. This is an average army. This is how big an Imperial Guard army was for, like, what is this, like 250 points? 500-point game, maybe? 2 troops choices, HQ choice. Armored Fist Squad, minimal size infantry platoon, command squad with nothing else. Commissar that weirdly had a power sword and a power fist.
I mean, technically, the sword might just be a close combat weapon.
Yeah.
Get that extra attack in.
But remember, like, GW is famous for doing this on blisters. Like, how many Space Marine blisters that they have? Like, the famous Chaplain blister where it was a Chaplain with a power fist and the Crozius, and you're just like, come on. Nobody's ever going to do that.
Yeah, but what if one person does?
What?
Look, Talleyrans.
Yep. The Valhallans.
Catechins. Look at all these pewter models you can buy.
Yep, now, and this was when, you know these were the pewter Catechins because they actually had the artillery carriage for the heavy bolter instead of just the plastic weapon team. The mortar's like a separate piece. I like that the Tolerance, like, grenade launcher is, like, so funky looking. Then you got
no, I don't know what the hell's up with their grenade launcher.
I dig it because it's just like, you know what, whatever.
You tell someone that was a plasma gun, and they'd probably say, "Okay,
yeah,
it's a water cooled plasma gun."
We need a water cooled plasma gun in the desert. The Talarns don't like plasma guns. Gets hot too easily. I like the captain model they have here with his sunglasses and his bolter. These are old school metal Cadians, and this is the first plastic. This was when they were first rolling out the plastic Chimera kits. That's the plastic Lean Rust kit, and that's the mixed kit for the Hellhound. Because if I remember correctly, it was like you got a Chimera kit, and then they gave you the metal bits for the tanks and the ablative plating, like this weird ablative plating they always put on the turrets, and then the Inferno cannon itself. The
ablative plating, the gun, and the tanks are pewter.
Yeah.
And they do not want to stick... Oh, and that hatch.
Oh, yeah. There's a different hatch.
Between the tanks. It's fucking awful.
They don't stick on the model ever?
Ever.
The old bad Stormtrooper model that was like Starship Troopers meets SAS, but like they made it a little too ugly. The Rattling models that haven't changed for like 7 editions.
I still have these. Oh wait, no, I don't. I gave them away. Shit.
The old metal Ogrins that were just like
hideous.
We're ugly. The Bonehead. Look at me. I'm in charge because I got the horns. Half of them.
I think the one in the front with the metal on top of his head is actually the Bonehead.
There's 2 of them with bionic eyes, and then one of them with the skull hat. So how can we tell?
No, the one with the metal head to the right.
Oh yeah, you're right. He's got a... That could be a skull cap, or it could be a cranial replacement. Who knows?
You can never tell with Ogrins until they talk.
How do you know that one's the Bonehead? He used complete sentences.
He can remember someone's name.
Oh my god, he's a genius.
Tactics.
Tactics.
That you're never going to use.
Look at this homemade foam cover. You never see that anymore. This is what you see all the time. This is the most stereotypical 40k table ever. It's just rolled green, some trees, and like hill pieces.
Yep. I've seen this table before.
I've seen this table a lot.
I have this table in my gaming room with no one to play.
With no one to play it with. Old Talarn, more of the old Talarn ones.
Look at that fucking pro gamer tip to the right. Always take 2 to 3 commissars.
It's funny is that he's got 2 commissars in the same Valhalla squad for some reason.
Oh, that sergeant's dead as fuck, son.
I like that this one has like the raised collar, and then this one's got the popped collar, and that's like the main way to tell them apart.
I mean, slapping on collars on a commissar is a good look when you put them in a Valhalla.
Yeah, well, this one makes sense because he's got the fluffy collar, so he's just like, I can't wear the Ushenka because I have this hat, but at least I can raise my collar because of the cold winds. Meanwhile, this guy's just like, look cool, look cool, look cool. Don't tell them that you're freezing your nuts off. The bunker, like catechins. They don't like. I like that in this in their own book they always they kind of describe it where they're like, oh, they have flak vests as a 6-up armor instead of 5-up like flak armor, and it's like their models never ever had any armor on, ever.
What are you talking about? Look at that fucking armored shirt they're wearing.
This armored wife beater. It's like Kroot with a 6-up armor save. It didn't even make any sense. Morty and Iron Guard models, all in their dress uniforms. Oh, were they based on? Like they almost look like old school U.S. Marines when like the dress blues were.
I think the basis of that was just like a highly disciplined uniform.
Yeah, they had a lot of, like I said earlier, they had a lot of German.
Napoleonic. I think it's Napoleonic era inspiration.
Oh, they're Prussians, aren't they?
They might be.
Yeah. And the old school Cadians when they were just like modern military before they became like Starship Troopers. This was right before they became Starship Troopers. Look at these barrels that look like tiny pipe bombs. They had the organizational markings.
Let's go over how to organize again.
I love it though. The tank company.
Oh yeah, that's what I love to see.
Squadron badges. Painting infantry. Basing your models.
How to paint. You fucking shitlords.
Camouflage. Washes. If they're on an ice world, make sure they wear white and blue pants. That's how they'll camouflage. Look! They got the Praetorians. They didn't forget them.
Smashing.
Painting, more painting tips. Look at that, that's just good. They have the dirt and everything featured on it.
Oh yeah.
Painting treads because treads are miserable. Drive treads while they're still in the sprue.
Those hooks, I recognize those hooks. Those are from a Tyranid kit.
These are bone spines, you think?
Yeah, they're bone spines, because I remember if you flip them over, it looks almost like it's metal.
Yeah, you're probably right. These look like they were bone spines out of a Carnifex kit for the Thornback. Yeah,
because all the texturing is on the back side of them, because I did the same conversion.
Yeah. His custom Basilisk artillery crew, these poor deaf men. This
Don't worry, they have those double-sided earplugs.
Dead Space earpiece. You need it. Personalizing your army. My special flamer that looks like it was converted out of an MG42 model.
Could be. Meridian rattling.
Get out. I just love to... No. I still will not wear shoes, sir. This one's got the heavy stubber before it was allowed. He's got the crew riding on the back, World War II.
A blade of armor.
Yep. Soviet ablative armor. The long cannon. It's good. It's good. Sargrad. It's just called Sargrad. Old school Warwick Kinraid. This is. You know who this is?
No.
This he went on to become one of the lead writers at Forge World.
Oh, okay.
So it makes sense. Like that's why, Krieg got so much shit, and like why the Siege of Rax was like crazy was because it was like it was an old Imperial Guard player who was writing for Forge World.
Oh, look at all those well painted models. Look at that shit ass Sentinel.
That Sentinel was converted out of like an Ed 209 model from like a RoboCop like action figure kit. Look at it. This is a salamander. Or no, that's a griffin. I thought it was a salamander for a second.
Could be. With how much detail I'm seeing.
Well, he's
got a short barreled basilisk.
Yes, short barrel basilisk with a camo net on the barrel.
He actually used plasticard to make extra protection for the heavy weapons teams.
And then he flipped the cannon around on the basilisk, like that's upside down. That is a mortar, so I think that this is a griffin.
Yeah, I can see it now.
And he's like very well camouflaged, except for the commissar who just sticks out like a sore thumb with his sash. We got a city fight, guys. All right, I'm going to wear my sash on the outside of my uniform. People got to respect me.
People got to know when you're a commissar.
The complete board with Warwick's Imperial Guard against Adrian Wood's orcs. Warwick's. Look, they're just Wehrmacht. That's great. He's just painted them. He's just painted them Wehrmacht camouflage. The showcase. This is where the real.
This is before they tried to roll out the Steel Legion.
Yeah.
And then they got disappointed that people didn't sprint out and buy pewter models.
Ridiculously expensive pewter
plastic models.
Yeah.
They put out pewter models that were 4 or 5 times the cost of their new plastic models, and then we're like, wow, people really hate this new line of infantry.
No, people love it. They're just expensive. Like, come on. That was when they came out. It was like, what was it, Codex Armageddon? They had the special rules for Armageddon.
And then they did the same thing again with the Vostroyans, and they're like,
man, we goofed up.
Why do people hate new armies?
Guess we'll just stick to Cadians again. No, just make them plastic. God. I like this. So he green stuffed like a cloak over the side. He took off the gun shield and made it some sandbags. For some reason, he's got like a double-barreled like stubber or something here.
Gatling stubber.
And then like the old metal tall-arm captain model that became Al-Rahem later on.
Yeah.
Cadia. He's got binoculars. Look, it's a real tank commander. He's got binoculars.
Look at all this painting. Now I remember that hedgerow cutter.
That's like a tank trap piece from Cities of Death, isn't it?
Yeah, but it also came with the Imperial Guard. It came with the Lehman Russes when they were still. It still had 2 separate attachments.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's just a minesweeper. Check out this.
The shovel was the minesweeper. That one was the rough terrain modification.
That makes sense.
Because there's a point in time where you can only take one or the other.
That's true. Check this out. So this is the old Valhallan Colonel model that became Chekhov. And look at these ridiculous conversions.
Well, those are orc vehicles.
But that's obviously like what they did before they came out with the Hydra. Oh no, this is a Hydra. So this is the Atlas recovery vehicle. Yeah, so this was around the same time. I see the
guardsman on it.
Yeah, this is an Atlas recovery vehicle. That's why it's got all the extra drive sprockets and like everything. And then that's just a crazily converted Hydra flak tank. Oh my god, what is this? Is this a Bradley?
A Chimera with a Bradley turret.
Yeah. That is a tow launcher. That is absolutely a tow launcher right there.
Yeah, that's a Bradley. I don't know where those guns came from, but they look like the autocannon, 2 of the autocannon attachments for a Lehman Russ Executioner.
He's got the vision slot opened just to show off his modeling skills. Look at that.
I see it. Hell, the back door's open.
Yep. He's got all the doors open just to show off that he cut him out and made him openable. And then it's
a lot of hard work.
Somebody's got this is my Nork Dead Dog, and it's a Warhammer ogre that he gave like these armor plates. Oh my god, that is a ton of that's the spaced armor that they put on the Hellhound turret, apparently, according to this. So that dude bought a ton of Hellhounds just to make this one model.
Well, I mean, he did it at GW.
I did it out of love. And also because I have an infinite supply
Look at these big freaking displays.
Yep. My giant landing pad. My city. Those look like Mordians.
Do you remember when GW cared?
This book remembers. Old school Meltagun. Just old school, like, lasguns in general. Oh, that's great. Extremely obvious tank that looks like it's...
You should send this image to that GM and say, this is what a trench line looks like after an extended fight.
Yeah.
Not a straight fucking line.
By the way, these guys are screwed. Like, that is a Khorne Berserker squad, and that's a Raptor squad. Like, these guys are fucked in this edition. Wouldn't you agree?
I'd say it depends on whose turn it is.
I don't know. This was the edition.
Lehman Russ Demolisher.
Yeah, but they're in close combat. Remember, you can't be targeted.
We don't know if they're in close combat yet.
They're within 2 inches.
I don't see any models base to base.
They're within 2 inches.
I don't even remember if that's true or not. Look, it's the attack route of Macarius.
The glory of Macarius. I took all this. Are these lines of attack route? He just went, like, totally around?
Yep.
That's great. The Halo Zone. Segmented Pacificus. This was
Look at all this shit Solar Macarius did.
He's got his special signal. I dig it.
Totally not Alexander the Great.
Yep. And that's the end of this book. I miss it. I've said this in the last, like, however many...
I miss the next one much more than I miss this one.
Well, we should just go over this one real quick, and we'll do this one day. This one was the one that introduced doctrines and shit.
I mean, Codex Catachains, if you just want to skim through it, it's the same book, but with a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
And a couple extra special rules.
It's special stuff like, you know, they can take Death World veterans.
They did they released them. They tried to do like a jungle fighting splat book, and they released this alongside it. And it just flopped because unless you played an army that had special rules for fighting in difficult terrain, you would lose.
And this was before, and like the whole thing was like, it was like this book and maybe Chaos Marines were and like Orcs were the only ones that had access to that. Yeah, Tyranids, definitely. You're right. That is a thing. But it did introduce a lot of really important stuff that had a lot of impact later on. So, jungle terrain, not a lot of impact. Death World veterans, not a lot of impact. It was important for charges. But demo charges. Holy Christ, demo charges. the cheesiest weapon for its points for a long time. I'm going to throw just a backpack full of TNT, 6 inches, and just murder a squad. May move and fire, 1 shot only. And then it was, Death World veterans were had higher
like all their
skill.
choices. They're just better versions of Imperial Guardsmen for more points.
Yeah, that were more close combat and close quarters focused. And then they had that was when they had sniper teams and everything.
You don't ever take snipers with them because if you're playing Catechins, you're fighting in a jungle, which means limited range. All you do is spam flamers.
Yep. This is when they had their sentinels that all came with rough terrain modification, and they had chainsaw warriors. So they had the defoliator attachment before it was called the defoliator attachment, when they literally just said chainsaw. This is probably the only time that you ever see like the words chainsaw, like chain and saw together.
Yep.
Because every other time it's like it's a chain blade, it's a chain sword, it's just a chainsaw. Come on, man.
Look, it's the Death World veterans, like regular veterans, but Death World.
But they're patrol, so they're like, oh man, they got ambush. They had the punji pit rules and everything, mortar, like the booby trap
Instead
stuff.
of getting Lehman Russes, you get booby traps,
which were hilarious at the time. Like they became way worse later on. Like to the point where like the last of them was like, 5th edition, when you could take snare mines and it was like, oh, you're difficult terrain charging us. But like here was when you actually had like a tactical setup for it and everything. You got to be like, come on, this does this does that. You have to set them up in a specific area.
Warning, playing Catechins requires a neutral party.
It was funny. Or that, or like a piece of paper, like, a notepad. Painting.
Even the notepad got questionable.
Like these are special. Look at like Swolio over here. It's pretty fun. Obviously, like they took that's like a head from like these are heads from like Chaos Marauders, I think.
Yeah. They're a mixed bag. It was so much work for them to do that. Is Marbo in this book?
Yes, that was a big thing. Is that this book was the one that introduced the rules in this edition for Marbo and Strachan.
Look at that guy riding a cold one.
I love it. I love it when they used to do this, when they were like, yeah, like everybody else converts stuff with stuff, so like with non Citadel products, but we have access to all the Citadel stuff, so we'll just put Warhammer Fantasy stuff in the game. This guy with his like old school auto gun. These lunatics that all look like retarded. He's just got his heavy bolter.
Squad.
We're idiots. He's just trailing his
seen so much shit.
A Death World sniper that's just like a dude covered in camouflage paint. That's obviously a converted. Like they cut off the barrel of an Exodus rifle and put it on a bolter receiver. Like a dude had to chop up they chopped up a Vindicare assassin to make this model. They did it again over here. Look at that.
Back when they wanted people to have fun and look at cool models.
The old school female Catechin jungle fighter.
That's not even a Catechin like model or anything. That's actually like that's like a 1/48 scale like model. He did a bunch of conversion work on.
Yeah. It's large scale. I think he probably got like a Reaper Miniatures woman or something, and then just like converted the hell out of it to have this like special, like that bolter looks really cool because it looks like a Great Crusade era bolter when they had like the really far forward magazines. He probably had to take like a knob head, like a big old orc head, to convert it into a Gene Stealer head for that. There's like these converted. Like these converted flamer packs and everything. Guile over here. Then like the whole list of stuff. I just dig this because like after this, booby traps became like a single profile instead of being like, is it a plasma charge? Is it a shredder mine? Is it a bouncing Betty? Is it punji sticks? Everything, and they have like all the rules on like the different kinds of Catechin knives and like Catechin knife culture. Which is, like, they should have had something like this in other books, because this is a big deal to Catechins. And then they had, like, special missions and everything, which was awesome.
All these freaking jungle rules.
It was great. Scanning devices. This is, like, what they gave the equivalent of everybody else. Everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Because they realized jungle fighting's a little bit overpowered in the favor of our specialized jungle fighting army.
Yep. Though the most annoying thing was like whenever they introduced rules like these where it was like something's hidden, the Tau always like managed to out-meme everybody because every single battle suit had acute senses. No matter what kind it was, like stealth suits, crisis suits, and broadsides all had acute senses.
Except in this, because
this was before the Tau were added.
Yep.
The Necron Lord is the only one that knows about booby traps. Then again, Necrons versus Imperial Guard was like one of the most one-sided fights in history in this edition. To be fair. Look, the design of booby traps and everything, they actually had scans about it and whatnot.
Yeah, like I said, when they were putting in effort.
I love it. Buried
Look,
bullets,
Strachan.
toe poppers. Strachan. Strachan looked a lot different these days. They made him like way older later on. He's got a Terminator hand. Like that is absolutely like Terminator. Like they sketched that based off the Terminator hand.
Yeah, now it's just like a power fist hand.
Well, like then now it's just like, oh look, it's Winter Soldier, gung ho. He's indifferent to all danger. So he had a leadership bubble.
And then he could take Codicium Devils as troops.
Yep. And this was like, he's just a good leader. He wasn't like, oh yeah, my bionics make me have smash in close combat. I ignore armor saves. Oh wait, no, never mind, it did. It was a power fist. You're right. Mimics the effect of a power fist, but devices in his chest unit allow him to strike using his initiative value instead of going last.
Yep.
And he was initiative 4, so that was... I came here to punch Space Marines.
To death.
Sly Marbo with the classic, like the Rambo ripoff pose. Is a one-man army. He operates alone, striking from ambush before disappearing back into the jungle.
Not as good as he should be.
Yeah, he's 135 points. The big deal about him is that still he has a demo charge, just like always, though. You just show up and demo charge somebody. I still think, what's weird is that similar to, weird video game logic, a lot of the later codexes would make miniature versions of special characters as, elite units or whatever. Used to be, Tyranids had old One Eye. And then later on, the next edition, they made it so one old One Eye had a super version of Regenerate, but then regular Carnifexes could get Regenerate. I don't know why they never did this, where they were they had Sly Marbo, but then for an Elite's choice, you could take Imperial Commandos or something. They could have just ripped off Command and Conquer and just get this party started. I got it.
He's better in this edition when he first came out, because this is when he could drop on the table and then leave it every other turn.
Yeah. Later on, he was still kind of good, but it was you mostly took him because he the only competition for an Elite's choice when he came back in 5th edition was Rattling Squads.
Yeah.
Because he didn't deep strike, he just showed up. You don't have to roll for it, he's just there. But they also
they had the ambush specials, and that's what he uses in this edition.
Yeah, but he has sniper on everything. The Ripper pistol's fun. He rerolls failed to wounds, but it's also a power weapon. And just once again, ambushes with a demo charge, so he shows up and then annihilates a unit or a tank. And then more fluff. More
look cool. Look at all this exotic wildlife that's going to murder you on Codicium.
Welcome to Codicium.
Is the barking toad in here?
Let's find it. Another regiment. Nope, the barking toad's not here. I guess they had the Codicium Devil, but the barking toad is not here. They probably mentioned it earlier. We skipped past it, but there's no sketch of it.
Womp womp.
That would have been a thing they should have had. I don't think either they didn't come up with it yet, or they thought it would have been overpowered, because this is when they were the barking toad will kill everything within 6 miles. It's if they had a barking toad grenade, where it's just you throw a live barking toad at somebody.
That'll always be my favorite piece of fluff.
No, my pet barking toad, why?
The regiment that brought a barking toad all the way from Codicium as a mascot, and then we're oh shit, there's a wog coming. all right, one of us is going to have to make the ultimate sacrifice. Who's it going to be? Ribbit? Oh, yeah. Set Barking Toad in the path of Orc Wog. Watch from great distance. Orcs discover Barking Toad, are very confused. One of them tries to punch it.
Those poor orcs never knew what hit him. Well, so any final thoughts on the 3rd edition Codex and the supplement for Imperial Guard? I know it's not your favorite.
It was the beginning of a good thing.
Until the good thing became a terrible thing.
Pretty much. I'm not really partial to the Codicium splat book. I think I still have my copy somewhere.
I have a hard copy of it somewhere too. It's like, this is less than 30 pages. This thing was, it's like 25 pages.
Yeah, it's just not much to it. There's no massive benefit to it unless you're playing that one mode that they released alongside it that nobody ever played.
That's true, but I mean, it also was at least a different way to play in a whole different army that wasn't just more wankery. But
this was before that was a problem.
That's true.
And it's probably why the book came out.
Also, other than just all the cool fluff that they had and all the sketches and whatnot, I think it's important. I think it was important to even just go over this because both of these characters and a lot of the rules in this, especially the demo charge, became very influential later on. Despite the fact, big things have small beginnings, that kind of thing. But
yeah, but I think that's going to be a wrap on this.
So we'll talk about we'll do a different codex next time. We can chug our way through the rest of the 3rd edition codexes. So until the next retrospective, this has been Omegon and Aun'Shi.
Don't get the corona.